Thursday, January 8th, 2024. And the View opened today since over the weekend was the anniversary of the terrorist attack on the Capitol. It's commonly called the insurrection of January 6th of 2021. And the two most likely presidential candidates had sort of different takes on that anniversary. One of whom, you know, vowed to never let it happen again, and that we need to work to never let that happen again. And the other saying that everyone who's been prosecuted from it should be released, as they are hostages. I, 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 I do think that's pretty offensive to use that word when they are convicted criminals. But it was interesting because it very quickly became a discussion about election talking points. And I don't disagree with Sarah in that making the entire election just about saving democracy, so we have to vote for Joe Biden, isn't going to resonate. And the sad part of that is that it's true, and that's not enough to get people to the polls. That's the sad part. And nobody mentioned that it's like, that's pretty despicable that the threat of losing democracy isn't enough to get people to go to the polls to vote for Joe Biden. Because I think people don't believe that Donald Trump will be as bad as he says he's going to be. And I think most of us know that he'll be worse than what he says he's going to be. So I think it was Sunny who said she was a one-issue voter. No, it was Anna who said she's a one-issue voter, and that's saving democracy. And then Sunny made a point about him saving the soul of America, and then he's not living up to the promise. Blah 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 blah. But I think that there's sort of a happy medium in there, and it's the one-issue voters that you actually want to get to. There's already enough about the saving democracy, and you have to keep on that. Anna's right. People will forget, because she didn't say it. She said the electorate has a short attention span. They're also dumb. But I think that what we need to do is actually go after all those one-issue voters. If your primary concern is female reproductive rights, you have no choice but to vote for Democrats. That is the only thing that you can do to protect those. And if it's saving democracy, we don't have much we can say about driving prices down, because that's not actually a political act, except for the fact that if you want to look at what party has refused to institute profit caps or actually legislate prices of prescriptions, or baby food, the Republicans have blocked all those bills. Show those voting records of the Republicans not helping the consumer. That might help. But gas prices will likely go up before the election because oil companies don't want a Democrat to win. Democrats barely even want to win because they don't want to be held accountable because they're not going to actually do much. But when the choice is a Democrat who won't fulfill the promise that you're hopeful for, and Republicans who just want to take away all of our democratic freedoms, I think that choice should be really easy. But again, we have to hold the hands of these idiots, like, both sides are so bad, and does it really matter which one we pick? Well, yes, it does. So that's all disappointing. And whoever was making the point, it was Sunny was making the point of playing the long game, the Republicans playing the long game of dumbing down the electorate. Sonny, they've been playing that game since Reagan. I mean, that's the Reagan playbook. That whole, um, culture war and distraction politics. They have been saying we're the only ones that can fix these problems. The Democrats, they're tax and spend. They're just going to tax you to death, spend all your money, and um, the the immigrants are a problem, the gays are a problem, trans people are a problem. Anything that they can sort of gin up to distract the voter and say, these are the reasons why everything's so terrible and they're taking your jobs, and we're the only ones that can fix it, and the Democrats want to eat your babies, and that being told for 40 some years to people, they believe it. Like the they vilified the Democratic Party to the point where people will be like, I'll never vote for a Democrat. Where I never would have said that 20 years ago, that I would never vote for a Republican. I mean, shit, I voted for fucking Rudy Giuliani in his first term at New York mayor. Whoops. But anyway, like now there's that much vitriol on the other side. It's like I could never vote for a Republican, and I would never have said this before now, but it's like you can't vote for a Republican. There aren't any good ones. They all, anyone that had any decency or backbone is gone from the federal level, and I just don't trust anyone now. If you're going to be a member of that party, I don't know how you can be trusted to not fall in line with fascism. So, this idea that the culture wars and this sort of brainwashing is something new is not. They've been doing this quite successfully for decades, which is why we are where we are now. It's how we ended up with Trump. They got everybody so dumb that they'll fall in line for this moronic fascist dictator. I mean, I think that's where they've always wanted to go. It's always where they wanted to get to. But I think they wanted someone with a little more brains, and who isn't quite so on the nose about it, because he's gonna end up in prison. But there are other authoritarians that could have taken the mantle that would be less overt about it, and that to me is the scarier part of the GOP. And letting them have any control, because they've already done it once with this idiot and sort of done the test run. So giving them any bit of power, they're just going to find a better, Frankenstein's monster to tell them the right story, and be in less legal trouble while doing it. I think they had big hopes for DeSantis, but he's a moron. He can't, oof. Although in that last debate he did seem like a human, which was very weird. And then the Golden Globes. I have never really found Joe Coy all that funny. I found him kind of annoying and a little bit of a lazy comedian. But boy, did that show. His monologue was awful. And then going off and blaming the audience, and I've only had 10 days. I get it. Okay. You could have used that excuse, but it came out so angry. And the only reason you only had 10 days is because they couldn't find anybody else to do it. Nobody wanted that gig. And that show doesn't really need a host. They can just have presenters, and somebody would be the first presenter. But it doesn't need a 10-minute monologue to start the show. Just let the party start. A lot of those presenters were funnier anyway, and I don't know who wrote that stuff. I assume Kristen Wiig and Will Ferrell did their own thing, but Audrey Day and John Baptiste were hilarious, and that was all just riffing, just talking about video games. So I think if you just sort of if you set the people up the right way, you could just let that party go a little less contrived than with a host, unless it's Tina and Amy, because they can't do anything wrong. Although That's not true. But they are really wickedly funny. Um, but yeah, so that was tough. He did make some lazy jokes. And I sort of feel for him having to read the vitriol he's going to get, or that he did get during the show. It's you know, Whoopi's done it. She knows it's it's a thankless gig, and I don't think Joe Coy did himself any favors. Um, Even though he only had 10 days to prepare, I missed that mark.